I invite you to bow your hearts with me for a word of prayer. Gracious God, give us humble, teachable, and obedient hearts, that we may receive what you have revealed and do what you have commanded. Amen.
Invite you to be seated.
The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went away. But when the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the tares became evident also. The slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? And he said to them, An enemy has done this. The slaves said to him, Do you want us, then, to go and gather them up? But he said, No, for while you are gathering up the tares, you may uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, First gather up the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them up, but gather the wheat into my barn.
It didn't quite work. Put it away. All right. There's supposed to be another video clip up there, but I didn't do something right. So we're going to continue in Matthew 13, and we come to the second parable of the seven or so. Once I push all these little buttons. There we go. All right. Now, the little light's coming on. Okay. Take a break. It's there. Okay. Yep, you're gonna have to. Okay, since this isn't working, it's working there, but it's not working there. See, I'll just tell her when to change the slide. Like, change slide. You have to be worried what the sign is. As we mentioned with parables, they are visual imagery, and they use the secular language and the secular culture of the day. So, of course, you're in an agricultural area called the Galilee. Everybody can then visualize what it is to go out in your field and plant wheat. Now, I remember being a kid planting tomatoes and cucumbers, those vegetable things in the garden. And I was really good at it because I could get those weeds to grow, no problem. Tomatoes, not so good. Cucumbers, meh. Weeds, fantastic. And then I'd be yelled at. My father or mother would say, you have to get the weeds out of the garden. Well, you know, that's painful, isn't it? They're all sticky, and they're pointy, and then if you pull them apart, they're gooey. It's like, not my thing. So that lasted like one summer. And I decided the second summer, if my parents really wanted fresh vegetables, they could either go to the ShopRite, that's what they had back then, which we now call the Giant, or they could do it themselves. So I decided that if I want to do agriculture, I go down the produce aisle of the Giant. Very easy to deal with. These parables that we're going to be seeing in the rest of chapter 13 deal with the kingdom of heaven. And they're all going to have this roundabout same message, but we are going to look into the culture of the day, because in each of the parables, hidden in there for us to find, is something amazing about us and about our relationship to others in the kingdom that is not extremely obvious. It's not stated, because if you visualize, as people did in Jesus' day and they knew their culture well, they would have picked it up. For us, it'll take us a little bit longer. So I'm sure you can imagine yourself going out to your garden or to your field and throwing lots of seeds down, right? How many of you actually throw weed seeds down? I have no idea where weeds come from. Does anyone know? Because we have grass around the townhouse and the weeds show up. I remember when we had our house and we had that viney stuff growing. I'm not even sure what you call it. And you'd rip it out, and of course it took grass with it too. And you get it all cleared out, and you put all that weed stuff on it. I don't even know what it's Roundup. That's the only one I could think of. Don't use Roundup, by the way. That's a cancer agent. But whatever it was, we used it. Or that Scott's Builder. Is that what we used? Yeah. And then the weeds would grow anyway. I don't remember putting weed seeds down. Any of you remember doing that? Well, in Jesus' day, they actually could tell from their wheat seeds that they had these weed seeds. Wow, that's going to be hard to say. When they harvested the weed, part of the harvest was to gather the seeds for the next year. Don't you always wonder where they got the seeds? See, we go to Agway, right? Isn't that where we go? Or is it Ace or somewhere like that? But in Jesus' day, you had to take part of your harvest and hold on to those seeds, or you didn't have wheat the next year. And of course, while they're harvesting, remember they didn't pull the weeds out till the harvest, because you could pull the weed out with it, and you would end up with wheat seeds and weed seeds together. And they would separate them. But they weren't done to the harvest. That's the visualization. I'm sure you could all see that. And the simple thing about it is, we are righteous people, and it says tares, but it's actually weeds, another word for weeds, are sinners. We're pretty well done, right? I guess not, because they want more, so let's hit the space bar, see if there's more up there. So first you have to wonder who the seeds are. Remember, everything is visual. So we got the righteous, we got the sinners, but we also have the seeds being thrown down, and the seeds are Jesus' teaching. So if you follow Jesus' teaching, you're all going to be righteous, right? Obviously, the whole world isn't doing that yet. It would be such a much better place if everyone would just do that. You want to stop the wars and the aggressions? Hand them Bibles. What a great idea. I'll make them read them too, by the way. They just don't. Yeah, I know they look pretty on coffee tables, but you're supposed to read them. And then who's this enemy that he talks about? Well, that in the parable, of course, would be Satan. The one who likes to drag us away from God and drag us away from Jesus. He's the guy who's going to be throwing the weeds at us. Next slide. The other thing that's interesting in this parable is we get the purpose of angels. Now you're thinking, I already know what angels do. Right in the back. They know. Well, there was a difference in what people thought angels did before Jesus and after Jesus. Things will change in thinking. If you go into the Old Testament, into Genesis especially, angels brought messages from God. That's where the name comes from. Angelos is the Greek word. Malach is the Hebrew word. It means messenger. They're messengers. But here in this parable, Jesus changes it a little bit. He adds a little bit more definition to it. So I shouldn't say changes, he adds. Yes, they are still messengers. However, if you read that parable very closely, you will see that angels now can take human prayers to God, kind of like intercessories. People started to believe that in those days. Kind of lost that over the centuries, but it was there at that time. They also believed that angels could affect nature. Think about what he said in the parable about angels. That's what people started to believe. Also, by Jesus talking about angels, it means we're all supposed to believe in angels. Do you believe in angels? You know, there are the good ones and the bad ones. The bad ones we call demons. The good ones are the naked ones that ride on the bicycle. How do I know that? Because I can look at a deck of cards. Bicycle cards. Okay, a few people got that. I played bridge when I was younger. We used a lot of bicycle cards then. Always wondered about the angels. I thought, okay, that's... But also, here's the new thing he adds, is that angels can bring devastation. He talks about the end of time. Anytime you hear harvest in the New Testament, he's talking about the end of time, and he's saying angels are going to show up, and it's not going to be pretty. If you want to learn more about it, you go to Revelation. These are good angels, not bad angels. So Jesus could have said, okay, angels, come on down, wipe out a few 100,000 people. They would have done it. This is what people started to believe in. And the other one, which is truth, but very hard sometimes. I had a hard time swallowing it, but it is true. God allows evil to exist with good. Because I would ask the question, and maybe you have asked this, why doesn't God just come down and scoop them out? Well, the parable tells you that. Because the problem is, if the weeds are growing in your wheat field and they're choking off your wheat, and you come in and pull out the weeds, you're going to pull out wheat at the same time. So if you go to punish all the evil people, this is the picture, see the picture, and God says, I'm going to get rid of, okay, we're going to destroy all the evil people, a lot of good people are going to go with them. If you go back into the book of Habakkuk, 3 very small chapters, Habakkuk comes up to God in prayer and complains and says, all this evil is happening here in Judea, and people are worshiping false gods, and all this ugliness is happening in the temple. Why don't you do something about it? That's chapter 1. Chapter 2, God says, you're right. I'm just going to wipe everybody out. Because there's no way to separate them. If you get rid of the evil people by having the country overrun, which the Babylonians did, you're going to kill good people with the bad people. Okay, so he says, I'm going to send the Babylonians and we'll take care of this problem, Habakkuk. And you know what chapter 3 says? He says, please don't do that, God. That's a problem that's been around like forever. So this is what the parable is saying. But we want to look for something deeper because you already knew all that, right? You've heard this parable many times. I've read it many times. So I said, what else is there? What lesson is there between the parable of the sower and the wheats and the tares and all the ones that come next? Because they all say that same theme, I should say. So let's talk about culture. Well, we know that no matter how well you plant, weeds are going to show up in your fields. You could be a farmer. Now think back 2,000 years and you got your big sack of seeds. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but weed seeds are very, very small. Wheat seeds, wow, that's really tough. Does everyone catch that there? Weed versus weed. Starts to sound the same to me. But the wheat seeds are like double the size of the weed seed. Maybe I should just call them tares. That makes a difference. Okay, so the wheat seeds are bigger than the tare seeds. And the farmer's going to separate them not only at the harvest time, but before planting season. He's going to pour them all out. Nice. You know what? He doesn't get them all, does he? And weeds are one of those plants that grow fast and they multiply, and before you know it, you got them like how many have had dandelions? And you try to get rid of them, And no matter how much you try, if you want to see good dandelions, just go out to the Felton Road. That guy on the corner has fields of them. He had beautiful grass till about 2 weeks ago. Dandelions everywhere. And then a good wind comes in, and now the guy across the street, in about a week, he's going to have good things. You know how it works. So they're very careful to separate. But here's the kicker that you may or may not know, and Jesus did say it about the enemy who comes and puts the tare seeds into the wheat field. Believe it or not, people did that. So if Dennis and I are neighbors and he gets me angry because he hit a bad note or something, which he never does, no offense, he gets me angry. So what do? In the middle of the night, I'm talking like 3 a.m., I just go up toward his field with a little handful of weeds. See, I kept all those weeds, those tare seeds. I wasn't stupid. I didn't throw them out.
That explains why I spent hours reading the garden.
That's what they would do. And then if he comes out a week or so, oh my goodness, where do all these weeds come from? And he might say, oh, wait a minute. Maybe that was Nancy who did it. So what does he do? He pulls out his 3 in the morning. Oh, while he's out here, he probably figured I did it too, so he probably threw some back at me. We call that retaliation, don't we? That's the cultural twist. That's the gem that's hiding in the scripture that we don't pick up unless we go through the culture. And it's one of the aspects that's never talked about. Jesus is telling us retaliation is not acceptable. Period. Makes that clear. We're supposed to love our neighbor. If you love your neighbor as I love Dennis, would I throw those tare seeds into his field? No, absolutely not. Because I forgive him for anything he did to me, which he never does. And Nancy's going to forgive him because he threw the tare seeds in her field. And we're going to love each other. How can you love one another if you're retaliating? You have to learn to forgive, right? Somewhere in Luke, doesn't it say about turning the other cheek, 770, and all that? And you're supposed to forgive people. That's what's in this thing, in this parable. So the definition, if we started making maybe we should go back and make a list. That'd be pretty cool. As we go through each of the parables, we can say, what additional thing are we learning about the kingdom of heaven? Well, we learned that only the righteous go in, right? We're all going to be there, right? Those who say yes are going to be there, right? There we go. Well, we know the righteous will be there, but part of being righteous means you can't retaliate. You got to forgive. And if you want God to forgive you, then you have to forgive your neighbor. We just said that, didn't we, in the Lord's Prayer? And we do that every Sunday. And that's the biggie that's hiding inside of this definition of the kingdom of heaven. And as we continue down these parables, that's what we're going to look for. Because it's going to talk about sinners and righteous and separating. That's all going to be there. But something else, some little hidden message that we will get through the culture and through the language used is what we're going to be looking for.